One of the major groups the U.S. government is focusing on to combat human trafficking, not just in Ghana, is children. Under the 2017 Trafficking in Persons report, Ghana is expected to prosecute more traffickers for their crimes and allocate enough resources to deal with the act.
In an interview with GBC 24, the political officer at the U.S. Embassy, Mr. Rustam Nyquist, said although Ghana does not fully meet the minimum standards to eliminate trafficking, it is making significant efforts in that direction. A report by Oforiwa Dako.
According to statistics, more than 100,000 men, women and children in Ghana are suffering in modern-day slavery. Some of these victims are enslaved in brothels or sold into slavery just like goats on the open market. Rights advocates say no matter the amount involved, no human deserves to be sold, and this is what the Trafficking in Persons report, introduced by the U.S. government 15 years ago, addresses by highlighting each government's shortfalls as well as successes in tackling human trafficking. I caught up with Mr. Rustam Nyquist, the political officer at the U.S. Embassy, to speak on elements taken into consideration for a complete annual Trafficking in Persons report.
So we look at trafficking in every country, including the United States. We try to provide a profile on the trafficking trends in the country. We analyze the efforts every government is making to try to combat trafficking, particularly looking at the 3 Ps. So that's prevention, prosecution, and protecting victims. We analyze these anti-trafficking efforts based on the international standards and put out a tier ranking, essentially on government's efforts to meet the minimum standards in international law.
The first report came out in 2001 and the most recent report released in June 2017. Over the years, the report has been modified with clear-cut strategies and recommendations for each country. Mr. Rustam Nyquist explained further about the objectives and goal of the Trafficking in Persons report.
We want to prevent future trafficking, and we want to make sure those who are profiting off of human suffering are held accountable. And we create the report for a variety of reasons beyond that. It's used as a diplomatic tool. So for example, here in Ghana, we use that as a basis of our conversations on how we can collaborate to better combat trafficking here in Ghana and in the West Africa sub-region.
By comparing and contrasting, the Trafficking in Persons report provides a global snapshot on trends that assist governments and civil societies to keep one step ahead of the traffickers. Since its inception, many countries have made progress by using the report as a reference guide. So, I asked what Ghana's ranking is on prevention, protection and prosecution for the past 7 years.
Ghana has, from 2011 to 2014, was a Tier 2 country, but beginning in 2015 dropped down to watch list. That means being at risk of dropping down to Tier 3 country. And this is really due in large part because there was a decline in the number of prosecutions. So there were fewer traffickers that are being held accountable criminally. They saw reducing budgets. So when you reduce the amount of budget that some of the trafficking agencies are able to operate with, that inhibits their ability to do their job.
The U.S. government has a long history of working with Ghana to end human trafficking and the worst forms of child labor in the country. Currently, a $5 million child protection compact signed between Ghana and the U.S. government in 2015 is to build government's capacity to respond to trafficking issues, identify traffickers and victims, as well as bring offenders to book. Fingers are crossed as Ghana waits for the release of the 2018 Trafficking in Persons report to assess government's efforts compared to previous years.